What's up, everyone? Welcome to Roto Grinders NBA Crunch Time. Almost said MLB again because I'm not used to this whole NBA thing. It's been a while and it feels good to be back. I am joined by my guy, John Breslin, Squirrel Patrol. How you doing, Squirrel?
Good. Yeah, just like I was just mentioning to you, like just went over this game for about an hour with Eric Bimefor on the Sirius XM show. So yeah, it's feeling good. Eric and I had very different takes on it. I don't know if this series is going to go beyond 4 games. I don't know we're going to see a game that finishes within double digits or within single digits. So yeah, I don't know. I'm a Celtics backer for the series, and we'll see what happens. I could look foolish in an hour or so.
Well, unfortunately, we're not going to be getting some good arguments then because I'm basically on the same page as you. Before the series, I said Celtics in 6. I'm leaning now towards probably, Celtics in 5. Celtics. I think Dallas will get 1. Luka's going to have a game where he's going to have 50 points. Boston's going to shoot like crap from 3. And I think Dallas gets 1. But Boston looks very much in control of this one. How do you think this game goes? How do you think it compares to the first game? Not just in spread and how much a team is going to win by, but how do you think this one is going to go from a game flow perspective?
So we could see some rotation changes. Not necessarily, but I did see that Porzingis is expected to come off the bench again, so that part should be similar. One thing that jumped out to me, and this is you're a DFS player when it's like this is what jumped out to me from game one. But Jaden Hardy was the third leading scorer for the Mavs, but did not come back after the first quarter. So he came in the first quarter off the bench, but then went out for the start of the second. He didn't come back until garbage time. So I think it might be a thing where he's like gets more popularity after scoring 13 points in game one, but I don't know if he's going to even be in the rotation. Tim Hardaway actually came in the third quarter, so that was before garbage time. So Tim Hardaway Jr. came back before Jaden Hardy. Something to be aware of for your your low priced utility players. And I think that Maxi Kleber is an interesting guy to keep an eye on. So he played 18 and a half minutes off the bench for the Mavs in game one. He's coming back from a shoulder injury, so hopefully that's a little bit better. He did absolutely nothing with his minutes. So he's not somebody that's going to jump out from a game log perspective or a box score perspective, but he's somebody that hopefully he can do more than 2 points and whatever hit in an assist or whatever he put up in game one. So I think he's somebody to keep an eye on for if you're trying to fill out that utility spot on DraftKings.
I like that quite a bit. I am very heavy on Maxi Kleber today. I'm doing one thing I haven't done in a long time, and I'm playing some cash tonight. And the reason I'm playing cash tonight is because I'm playing 8 tournament lineups, and they're all pretty bonkers. Jason Tatum is a captain in one of them, and in all of the others, my captains are Maxi Kleber, Sam Hauser, and Jaden Hardy. For the purpose that we were talking about before, that this turns into a blowout, little Luka is a little bit banged up. Maybe Boston's up 20 points in the third quarter, and Luka's struggling with whatever fake or real injury he's dealing with. And then this ends up turning into a bunch of blowout run for Jaden Hardy. I have some Jaden Hardy captain lineups today.
Yeah, so you're going all out with it. I was like, yeah, you might want to keep in mind it might be a blowout. You're like, yeah, full steam ahead with the blowout. So interesting. I don't know if I love the super cheap guys in the captain. So I do like the mid price guys in the captain spots. I get worried from a raw points perspective that like Jaden Hardy has to do a lot. Like I said, he might not come in until garbage time as it is. I like Mike Kleber a little bit more from the captain spot, but I'm just worried he's such a poor permanent fantasy producer. I like more like the Drew Holiday, like Derek White range, like Al Horford, a bunch of Celtics. But maybe from the Maverick side, maybe like a Derek Lively, like say it's going to be more of a Derek Lively series than a Daniel Gafford series, or maybe even like Kleber looked like so bad in terms of production in game one that maybe Derek Lively gets a little bit more of that run. And he did have 5 fouls in game one, so that could have been an impact on his performance as well.
Yeah, I think that makes complete sense there. Who would be, say you're playing optimally today, you're playing a cash game, you're playing a single entry, you want the best captain on the board. Who do you think that is that you would be going to today? Like, who would be the one? Obviously, Luka Doncic is that like expected by a lot to be the top raw point scorer today. But captain, you have to worry about point per dollar a little bit. It impacts the salary, impacts the rest of your positions you're able to get to. So Doncic is the highest owned captain today. If you were looking to play one lineup, this is my for all the marbles. Who would be your captain?
Well, again, if I'm trying to just beat 50% of the people, I might go Luca. I don't even love that though. Like I don't know if I'll play a ton of cash games. I'll have to see what's still available after the show. But I think that I would even go like Horford or Derek White or Drew Holiday. I think in the captain spot because it's salary multiplier, and that's DraftKings specific. Not I would do the opposite on FanDuel. But that salary multiplier when you get to Luca's salary like hurts you so much. And then you're really like left scraping the bottom of the barrel. Like if you're playing Luca in the captain, like you're probably looking at like Daniel Gafford or Josh Green or like some pretty cheap value player or Maxi Kleber who's like a little bit tentative. So I like going the other way with it and just like trying to avoid those guys in cash games and maybe like with Al Horford starting, like maybe he's a direction I would go in terms of a captain spot.
Drew Holiday is definitely my favorite guy there as well, with Derek White, I think, coming in right behind him. I don't mind Horford, though, either. This is kind of why I did the strategy that I went with in the like $25, 250K or 500K, whatever it is to first prize. I want to win that first prize, or I'm going to lose all my entry fees. But I got this big cash game style team that I'm hoping will recoup the rest of those tournament lineups that have the Jaden Hardy, the Maxi Clavas at the captain position. And I think the best way to put out just like a high upside lineup is that mid range at the captain position. I couldn't agree more with you there. Way to mutant time. That was beautiful. What about for me? Obviously, like I said, if I'm trying to get spicy, different in large field tournaments, I'm going with those super cheap guys so I can load up on the Doncic's, on the Tatums, on the Browns. Who would be your favorite large field to get different captains? Obviously, though, most of our favorites, the Drew Holidays, the Derek Whites, they're kind of different enough.
Yeah, I actually think that like Jason Tatum is not going to see that much ownership at the captain spot, and so he might be. I'm kind of interested in being over the field on Tatum. I think for this game, maybe more so in the utility than captain spot. Just I think people are going to look at him and say, like, oh, like this Celtics team is like such a well-rounded team. That's kind of the theme after game one. It's just like oh, they just have so many pieces. It's so difficult to stop them. Like it's not necessarily like Jason Tatum's team. It's more of like a well-rounded effort. I think the opposite might be true. I think maybe Jason Tatum just wasn't required to do a whole lot in game one. And maybe he's got one of those big games left in him. Like he's never that far away from a triple double, right? He hasn't gotten there with like 10 assists, I don't think, in the postseason. But he's right around that like 9-8 mark a lot of the time. And you look at last game, and maybe if a little bit more was required, like maybe he's getting a little bit more than 5 assists, but I mean, he's kind of a built-in double-double. And he comes at a discount from Luca. So if I'm really spending up, I almost prefer Jason Tatum to Luca, even though I think that Luca is going to be the top raw point scorer.
Yeah, I don't mind that either today. That's kind of how I was viewing it too. Is a lot of people are going to look at game one and go, "Oh, Tatum didn't really do anything. He's the expensive guy. I'm gonna fade today." And I don't actually think that we're going to see the ownership get to the same level that ownership projection is having with him today. Couldn't agree more on that one. FanDuel specifically, I don't think we got to spend a lot of time on it. Like the only reason that you don't play Luka Doncic at the MVP is obscene ownership. But like if you're playing 150 lineups, there's nothing wrong with playing 150 teams with Luka Doncic as MVP. I don't think I would go crazier than Jaylen Brown there. Like Jaylen Brown would probably be like Doncic, Tatum, and Brown. I think that's the only MVP you want to do on FanDuel.
So I had an interesting thought. This is today's DFS thought that I had when I was in the shower. It was actually if I'm doing 150 lineups, I don't know if I want to put Luca in the captain spot at all, or in the MVP spot rather.
Or that.
Yeah. So I think that you might because like if you're doing 150 lineups, like that's 150 entry fees. Like I did FanDuel single game earlier this postseason, and I put in 150 $15 entry fees. So it's $2,000, 250 investment, and I got first place, and it would paid out $180. If you're doing 150 lineups, I think maybe you are saying right out to get your money back, you need to have a game where it goes a little bit off the rails, where Luka is not the MVP, or Jason Tatum's not the MVP, and maybe you should be playing every because like Jaylen Brown was the MVP in game one, or at least like maybe you're going under the field those guys and getting really different in like the pro the star spot or the pro spot, or maybe you're like locking in has to be one of Luca or Jason Tatum in the pro spot, and you're basically just making a bet that at least one guy is going to outscore them and end up being the star. Because I think Luca and Jason Tatum will see very low ownership in the pro spots, but just kind of some strange DFS shower thought that I had this morning. Like, in order to get your money back doing so many lineups, you have to have a game script that is different from like very, very different from projections.
It's so tough to know how ownership is going to look in a single game because people just go, oh, this guy highly owned, I'm not playing him. Oh, this guy's low owned, I'm going to play him. And if enough people do that, it kind of swaps them. And so like as this ownership stands right now, I would almost rather go 100 than 0 of Luka in the MVP just because 33% really isn't that much. But I don't think it's going to be 33%. I think it's going to be 40, 45% Luka in the MVP position today. And then that has me kind of considering doing the same thing that you would do and go with the 0%. If we knew this is how ownership was going to look, if we knew exactly how this was going to be, I would have Jaylen Brown or Kyrie Irving in the MVP of 100% of my lineups. If I knew that those guys were only going to be 11 and 12%, because then you're competing with a lot less people. And those are two that I think there are very viable paths to getting there as the MVP. They put up 40 points. If it's Kyrie or Jaylen Brown, it can be a number of different ways. But it's so tough to know how that ownership is going to shake out. But I like the idea of that you were having there as well, of like you're putting him Luka or Tatum in the pro, but not the MVP. I think you do one or the other if you're playing a bunch of lineups. If you're playing 150, I think you go 100% Luka in the MVP or 0% Luka in the MVP.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like FanDuel NBA single game is something I rarely do. I basically only start to think about it in the postseason, just because of the experience. So like I outlined of like putting in a ton of lineups, getting in first place and being like, well, there's nothing I could have done, right? Like I couldn't have gotten my money back from this putting in a bunch of lineups. So yeah, I think you got to go one way or the other. I would lean more towards like not putting Luka in the MVP, and that's like the first time I've said this on like if we'll talk about FanDuel single game NBA. If you're doing one lineup, you're doing one lineup. You put it in $15. You just want to get like 30 back. Then I would consider putting in Luka in the MVP. If you're doing 150, I'd consider like almost excluding him. And something to think about is like I was a little bit surprised with some of the ownerships that we saw in game one. Like I'm used to like a much more casual crowd kind of playing DFS, especially for like game one of the finals. It was pretty efficient, which I don't like to see. But I was really surprised how low the ownership was on Luka on DraftKings, in particular in the captain spot. Like I thought he would see like 30-40% ownership in the captain spot where there's the salary multiplier. And I think it was much lower. I think it was like 15% or 13%. And I remember I was like trying to go way under the field. And I think I ended up at the field's number, which I didn't like to see that.
Just worst case scenario that you like.
Yeah, it seems like the field is like it's getting a little bit sharper about this and saying like, oh yeah, Luka's overpriced. We can't put him in the captain spot.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And that's exactly like what we were just talking about. If you knew how the ownership would actually shake out, I mean, if you knew there was going to be 13% Luka, you probably play him a captain in 100% of your lineups just to get that heavily over the field there of him being under-owned. So tough to put these together. Well, let's sort of build a lineup here on FanDuel, like not a full one, but a start to one. And then we'll do the same on DraftKings. for FanDuel, why don't we do this no Luka in the MVP approach? We'll put him in the star or the pro. And then that'll be kind of like our different lineup, and you can kind of transfer the ideas to both the sides. And then on DraftKings, maybe we'll put together that Drew Holiday, Derek White sort of style start to a lineup as kind of our favorite single entry style. Who would be your favorite MVP here if you were doing a Luka MVP fade? Would it be Tatum? Or since he's maybe going to be pretty close to Luka in ownership, would you want to go Brown or Irving?
I might go Jason Tatum just because like it's in Boston. It's tempting to go in a different direction, but like I think not playing Luka will be different than probably like 70% or something of lineups. And that's a start. And I think we still have the opportunity to get a little bit more different in like the star and pro and utility spots.
On that note, are you wanting to go a full Luka fade? Luka is still the highest projected owned star here as well. Or you want to bump him down to the pro? Who are you thinking here? I do like, just at all of these positions, looking at them, I do like how Jaylen Brown's the fourth projected highest owned guy in each of them. That makes me want to click his name.
I was going to go in a different direction. And I was going to say, like, if we're fading Luka, maybe we go Kyrie, right?
Yeah.
And say, because like, maybe Luka still has a good game. Maybe he's racking up a little bit more assists and points, and that's like suppressing his score a little bit. And then I would go Luka in the pro spot and say like Luka still has a great game. Like he's still going to be one of the top three guys. We're going to be a little bit short on salary, but I still think this is doable. I think we can do this lineup, and it's a little bit different with like Luka in the pro spot.
You are choosing two of Sam Hauser, Peyton Pritchard, Josh Green, Jaden Hardy, Maxi Kleber. If you do go all the way down to Kleber, I believe you could get up to, then you could get up to Derek Jones Jr. in that situation. Two of that group you'd be throwing together. I don't think it's fully crazy to do the Luka full fade and not even play him at the pro. Just because of the type of salary it leaves you here. If you want to do a Boston load up on them, you can play yourself some Holiday and White, and it leaves you room for any of the role players, or you could go Holiday and PJ and keep it cheaper, and you can afford a Horford in there. I don't think it's totally crazy to go with, especially since we have Kyrie here at the start, to go the full fade and just hope he finishes with like 42 fantasy points today. And if he does, there's a good chance that he's priced out of the optimal lineup entirely. But let's pull it over back to DraftKings, where we got the salary multiplier here. And if we're really considering using somebody like, say, Drew Holiday in the captain position, then I have a lot less interest in fading Luka because we got the salary for him.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's why you put like a lower priced guy, mid-range guy in the captain spot, is that you're hoping the field doesn't catch on and do that. But it allows you to pay up more in the utility spots. And we're not dealing with like the MVP pro star, like the 3-tiered kind of multiplier spots. We're just dealing with the one captain spot. So yeah, I'd go Giroux and then I'd add in Luka Dunk.
Yeah, I like that as well. You can get a much more balanced build if you don't use Jason Tatum. As soon as you use Jason Tatum and Luka Doncic together, it becomes a lot tougher. You got to use the Gaffords and the Joneses, or you go all the way down to the Hardys, the Hausers, and the Klebas. I've been personally going most of the routes today where I do try and play them together, and I am playing a Hardy or a Hardaway or a Kleba. How about you? Do you want to go Tatum in the? If you're talking, I'm playing one lineup. And it's big dollar. It's a big entry fee for whatever your thing is. And so you're more concerned of finishing in the money than anything else. Who would be your next addition here? You going with Tatum or without?
You mentioned somebody, and I started thinking about it. I wonder what it looks like if we put in Tim Hardaway, because he's like the absolute cheapest. So Kleber is 2,200. Hardaway is 2,000. I wanted to see I think he could be somebody that gets more run. Like I mentioned, he came in the third quarter, and I'm wondering if he takes some minutes at maybe Jaden Hardy's expense, maybe even Josh Green's expense. And if we put Hardaway in, that's going to be pretty different, and it starts to allow us to do kind of whatever we want.
It gives me $300 away from just an absolutely supreme lineup and I can't quite afford Jason Tatum with Hardaway, Horford, and White there. So can't quite do exactly whatever, but it leaves a lot open. 8,100 per position but kind of seems like you go Tatum or Brown, and then White or Porzingis or Horford, and you still have to have a somewhat cheap guy.
Yeah, I wonder if we could put Tatum in. I want to use as much salary as I can if I'm using Tim Hardaway.
You could do PJ Washington and Horford for last two positions.
Yeah, something like that. Because I don't mind those guys at all. I think Mavericks are gonna have to rely on the big guys as much as possible. So yeah, like PJ Washington, and then Porzingis is probably going to be like a bit too pricey and too owned after game one.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like he still only. I mean, that was a blow, but he still only played 20 minutes in that game. It was just he hit every shot that he took. Yeah. He was blocking a lot of shots. For what it's worth, I still think one of the best bets out there at all. Period. Maybe we want to start making some transition into our favorite bets, things like that, and then we can roll into some QQs. If you got questions, get them into the Roto Grinders live stream Discord chat, and then I will be looking at the YouTube chat. Second, smash that like button if you're watching us on YouTube. It's free content for the NBA playoffs on a Sunday night. We're just here because we want to be. We're just here because we wanted to hang out with you. So smash that like button for us. It does help. It does wonders. And then we can look at some NBA SimLabs stuff here as well, because SimLabs right now, as I pivot to the ad reads, is the expert DFS lineup generation tool for Roto Grinders and Fantasy Labs, now available for NBA, PGA, and MLB. With a few clicks, you can have hundreds of well-built correlated lineups for whatever contest you're playing. You can access SimLabs with the Roto Grinders premium subscription, so be sure to grab one. And there's also, speaking of Roto Grinders premium subscriptions, there's never been a better time to sign up for Roto Grinders premium with NBA, PGA, NHL, MMA, MLB, and WNBA, and we've got an option for whatever level you're looking for. Get yourself a 6-month combo subscription at an exclusive price of $469.99. That's a savings of $250 instead of buying 6 individual months of combo premium. You can also get your first month of Roto Grinders premium for $40 off for a limited time. Those that want to test run before buying can dip their toes in the water with our 3-day pass at $19.99. Check the link in our description for more info right down there. Throughout this series, one of my favorite bets, I think that's a long enough tease, seeing these are my favorites and then going straight to the ad reads, is both Al Horford and Kristaps Porzingis laddering their three-pointers. 1, 2, 3, 4. Because unless Dallas goes small, that's going to be what is open for them almost 100% of the time, is as they keep rotating, the big man is going to be open for a three-pointer. And then even because Gafford and Lively don't really want to get out there, Lively a lot more than Gafford. But then even if they do go small, it's PJ Washington or someone out there at the 5. Porzingis can shoot over them anytime he wants. And so Dallas is going to fire up a ton of three-pointers. I love laddering Horford and Porzingis threes as some of my favorite bets.
Well, yeah, no, I wouldn't have thought of that, but that is interesting. I was thinking about, I was saying to Eric on the show, right, on the Sirius XM show, like I almost turned the TV off when the Mavericks had Josh Green on Kristaps Porzingis. Like there's like a 9-inch height difference there, and like Porzingis didn't do anything. He just shot the ball. Like he didn't have to fake. He didn't have to pretend like he was going to try. He just turned around and shot them. I mean, yeah, it was too much of a height difference, and so. I agree. Like, yeah, Horford and Porzingis are just going to be able to shoot over the Mavs defenders. Like, unless like Gafford, Lively, Maxi Kleber, like they got to find somebody that can guard those two guys, whichever one is on the court. They're too tall and they can shoot too long range for the Mavericks to keep up with them as is currently formulated.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Who are some of your top bets? You mentioned that you went over a few of those with Eric on the Sirius show as well.
So, like one bet is maybe if you want to do the Celtics alternate line, it's like Celtics -10. I think you're gonna have +170 or +180. I like Jaden Hardy unders, like we talked about. I actually just saw on DraftKings. I saw like a Tim Hardaway points over, get plus money over 2.5. I thought it was interesting because that could even hit during garbage time.
Go out there, hit 1-3. That's all he needs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I still like the Maxi Kleber over bets. I liked them last game. He played 19 minutes. It was like plus money to over 1.5 rebounds. He got 0 rebounds. But if I think they are going to need those minutes from him. I think they're going to need him to do more with those minutes. So I think rebounds, or maybe if you want to do like a points and rebounds. I think it's maybe minus 150 over 1.5 rebounds. But I still think it's like something. He's 6'10". He should be able to get a couple of rebounds.
So that's the thing, right? Is that was my thought process before the last game. I had the same thought with Horford and Porzingis threes. That part went well. But my DFS lineups ended up sucking. I was super heavy on Maxi Kleber and so proud of myself for it because he played 18 and a half minutes. But he just didn't do anything. And my thought process was Boston's going to play 5 guys out and post up whoever they have a mismatch on. The only real way they can get away with that without a mismatch and just not have somebody wide open for 3 is if they use Maxi Kleber at the 5, in addition to PJ Washington, as opposed to Lively or Gafford. And I was so proud of my thought process, and he just didn't do anything while he was out there.
Yeah, I mean, he's never like a big fantasy producer, but he's going to have to do more. You have to think like he's capable of doing more. So hopefully he does it. Hopefully he gets a rebound. Ball just bounces his way a couple times. I mean, like not the best logic for a bet. I hope the ball just bounces to him. But like no, he's got to be able to rebound more if he's playing like 19 minutes, 19, 20 minutes. I would expect the minutes to go up, not down.
Yeah, I think that makes sense as well. I'm hoping that's the case because that's how I'm playing it. Let's look at a little bit of NBA SimLabs stuff here. As I adjust the screen share on the proper laptop. I always find myself accidentally working on the wrong computer when I got 2 screens going here. But I got some SimLabs stuff pulled up. Large field contest. We're trying to win some big prizes tonight. If you were doing this, how would you want your results range to go? Would you want it low, keeping fairly close to optimal? Would you want it high because there's so many different people in this one? I do find when I get too high, the lineups just don't really make a lot of sense at that point. When you're utilizing SimLabs, what percentage of results ranges you usually drop it in?
I tend to go pretty high. I would go like medium. I mean, I think, we could go. Yeah, I'd click the medium.
I like adjusting it just a couple percentages either way. So if somebody else is just clicking medium, mine's a little different.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I do the same thing. I don't like to take. I like to click the button and then just adjust it a little bit.
Same thing for randomness and lineup HQ. Like I'm never using 5 and 10. It's like 7 and 13.
Yeah, exactly. Because like you're basically always trying to get a little bit away from what everybody else is doing. Yeah. Let's see. It's interesting. We may want to like turn down the projection weight a little bit if we're thinking like blowout, right? Like blowout is going to be like way less from like the optimal lineup, like in terms of projection.
Yeah.
Correlation.
And then correlation. I like that. That I feel like that's maybe I use that more when I'm doing like a football one than a basketball one. But I don't mind bumping that one up a bit. The biggest important to me for basketball is simulation weight. I need my lineup to make sense. I need my lineup to like that is with correlation as well, but it's less about correlation with who plays well together and correlation of if it's a blowout, these are the guys who will play minutes. If it's not, these are the guys who won't.
Yeah, exactly. So I'd keep the core. I guess correlation weight. I'm not that worried about. Yeah, it looks about right.
All right, I have it set for 150 lineups here. Let's see what it gets us. I would be interested to see if it is heavy on the Drew Holiday style lineups as we are. This is expecting it. We're going to have a very different results range in this one. I don't think we're going to get a lot of Luka captain stuff because we bumped the results range up so heavy. But let's see here. Switch it to exposures. Luka, of course, the highest owned utility. That makes sense. Highest owned captain, Jason Tatum, followed by Drew Holiday, then Luka Doncic, Jaylen Brown, Kyrie Irving, Derek White, Lively, like we talked about. Washington, Gafford, Derek Jones, Josh Green. I wouldn't do that. But even the Jaden Hardy lineups in there that we talked about.
Luke Cornett and Dante Exum one is interesting.
Yeah, you got to X those out because those guys probably aren't going to get on the court.
Right. Yeah, there'd have to be like a bus accident on the way to
Yeah.
the arena. But you never know.
Porzingis and Horford both get injured, and Luke Cornett plays 28 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. I guess anything's possible. I mean, and there could be some rotation changes. I'm not thinking Cornett or Exum. Dante Exum, I guess it's possible that maybe he would like take some of the minutes from Hardy or Josh Green. I'm surprised that the Luka captain ownership is so high. I would like hit the minus button. I think if I was actually doing this.
Yeah, I think I would too, because it does seem like the sort of method it went with is they just jammed a bunch of like really low owned Luka lineups in there, and it's like, yeah, Luke Cornett is in the lineup, Dante Exum is in the lineup, but yeah, they're low owned, but those guys are probably not going to be getting in there. I do like that it gave us a lot of Drew Holiday right off the back, though. He is my favorite DraftKings captain today for those who tuned in a little bit late. We got just over 10 minutes to lock here. We'll start going through some QQs. If we got questions that lead up to lock, great. If not, we'll get out of here a little bit early. Somebody just mentioned that Luka Doncic is not seen warming up with the team. And so I'm looking into that one right now to see if I can find anything there. He's announced as the starters. He's announced as the starting lineup. I'm not worried about that. He's probably just a little bit. If he's getting some kind of shot or something right now, so that it lasts as long as possible through the game. That would be my best guess. He didn't do any half-court shots at the end of his pregame workout. Oh my goodness, the Dallas beat writer can't remember the last time he has seen that happen. I'm telling you, Jaden Hardy at the captain. It's worth something. It might work. DKGPP. I have Derek White as my captain. I got Luka and Tatum. Would you rather use Porzingis or Kyrie as your last piece?
Sorry, we'll run it past me again.
Porzingis or Kyrie as a last piece in a team that has Luka, Tatum, and White.
I might do Kyrie. I think Kyrie's going to have a game this series. So I would go with Kyrie. And I think he had such a bad game, whereas Porzingis had a good game in game one. But I think they're going to like regress, right? Like regress to the mean.
Yeah, it is such an interesting thing with like Luka's not out there with the team right now. He's not warming up. He didn't do his normal one-up. Guy's probably going to have like 75 fantasy points tonight, isn't he? Like, that's how this is going to go. It's not going to be he leaves the game early. It's going to be as like 75 fantasy points.
As soon as we're like, he's too expensive. He can't get there in a salary multiplier format. Going to put up 90.
I think the game is going to happen in Dallas where that happens, and I do think that happens once. But I think it's more likely to happen in Dallas. But the only thing I'm considering with that is like I don't think Luka's necessarily going to be worse because of this. Like he's a generational player. He's going to be an all-timer. He's probably the second best player in basketball right now, in my opinion. Hurt players have great games all the time, absolutely all the time. The one place I think it could factor in maybe a little bit would be is if this starts turning into a blowout, they might wave the white flag a little bit earlier, but it's the NBA finals. Who waves the white flag early, you know? So it's tough to say. How do y'all feel about Holiday at captain today? Absolutely love him. /MVP. I would not use him as an MVP on FanDuel. I wouldn't go that deep, but I as a captain on DraftKings, that is my favorite build today. What do we got here? Lots of people chatting in the chat, which is absolutely fantastic. Luka under 32.5 points today. Am I an idiot?
No, I think that's fine. Yeah, I think it's totally reasonable. Like like we said, I think we agree that there's going to be a Kyrie game this series. And if it's this one, maybe Luka is still having a good game. It's just with assists rather than with points. So yeah, I think you can go to the under the Luka points.
Horford captain with Derek White or Drew captain with PJ Washington? DK Cash.
I'd probably do that Horford captain with Derek White.
Best play for last man in on DraftKings Cash, $2,700 or less. I think that's got to be Maxi Kleber.
Yeah, I mean 2,700 is cheap. I'd go Kleber. Then probably after that, like Sam Hauser.
Yeah. We like the idea of taking shots on Tim Hardaway today, but that absolutely is more of a tournament thing. It's Kleber or Hauser in that situation for a cash game. Switching back to YouTube here. Luka back on the court. If Luka had 75 fantasy points, he won't be in the winning roster. I don't think I agree with that one. If he has 75 fantasy points, he's getting in there for sure.
I don't know. I actually don't know. So I was talking about this with Chop on the show for game one. Last year, Jokic had 80 DraftKings points one game. He wasn't the winning captain. He had, I think it was like a 30, 40-point triple-double, something like that. So it was 80 DraftKings points, but he was so expensive that he could not be the winning captain. So last year DraftKings had the salaries for the minimum price guys be 1,000. This year they're 2,000, and we don't have anybody who has a projection. I think Tim Hardaway Jr. is probably the only $2,000 guy that I'd really consider that like might get points not in a blowout. I don't know. I like the idea of minimizing my Luka captain.
Oh yeah. To be clear, there's, especially if a cheap guy goes off, there are absolutely cases where 75 points won't work at the captain. I don't think there's any chance where 75 points doesn't land him in the winning roster. Like, he's going to have to be on the team if he gets the winning lineup. But for what it's worth, it does seem like the way you interpreted that actually was how he meant it in chat as well. Okay, and so you guys were on the same page with that one. It was just me who had the misunderstanding, it seems, because Fade as the captain, I'm good with that. But in the lineup, I think he's going to need to be there. DKGPP, last piece. Hardy or THJ? That kind of is the question, is it? It's how you think they're going to run that rotation. I think if you think this game is going to be somewhat close, you're playing this as a competitive game. The answer is Tim Hardaway Jr. He got that third quarter run, like Squirrel mentioned. Maybe more likely he plays in a close game. He's a bit taller. If you think you're leading blowout and Boston comes away with this one, and Luka's maybe a little bothered and he gets kicked out of the game early, then it's Hardaway. It's kind of game flow dependent. You lean then it's Hardy. You lean to the Hardaway route though, correct?
I think if you want safety, if you want to be more likely to cash, I think you want Hardy. I think if you more likely want to win at GPP, I would go Tim Hardaway. I'm probably going to go more Tim Hardaway. I like the idea, especially because Hardy is more expensive. I like the idea of like building as though Tim Hardaway Jr. outscores him. And that could happen in multiple ways. It could just happen in garbage time. And I think Tim Hardaway Jr. is going to be much lower.
Who do you think is today's biggest bust for their price? Do we go Hardy or Kleber? It's the same stuff, guys. Very much same stuff. Kleber is going to very likely have more minutes. Hardy is going to be a better point per minute guy. It's just dependent on whether or not you think it stays close. Again, I think if this is a tight game, Kleber will absolutely have more minutes. The size will be needed. If it turns into a blowout and Hardy gets some fourth quarter run, that's all of a sudden if he gets 12 to 14 minutes, there's a good chance he's optimal. He might only get 6 minutes, though. If he gets 18 to 20 minutes because it's a massive blowout, he's for sure going to be optimal. But it really is dependent on how much he plays. And Kleber is the safer minutes route, and Hardy is the higher upside one. Who do you think is the biggest bust today, point per dollar?
I think Jaylen Brown. Well, probably Kristaps Porzingis. They increased his price, and especially on DraftKings in particular. I don't like Porzingis. Just because he doesn't get 3 points for blocks and steals. I think last question, I think I answered Hardy or THJ from chat, not Hardy or Kleber.
Yeah, that was back-to-back questions. First one was Hardy THJ, next one was Hardy Kleber.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, I think we're on the same page for both questions.
The media are saying Mavericks are nothing without Luka. The media would be absolutely correct on that one. The Nuggets are not anywhere close to a championship team without Jokic, and the Mavericks are nowhere close to a championship team without Luka. They're not making the playoffs without
Mainstream
Luka.
media, yeah.
How many minutes is Al Horford projected for today? He is starting and projected to play 30 minutes. I think we nailed it on questions. We got 3 minutes left to lock. My laptop says it has a low battery and to charge soon. Luka is back on the court warming up. I think we are going to be good for this one. Is there any last minute hot takes? You did tell me you had hot takes. So what's your last minute hot take before we get out of here?
I mean, it's not a super hot take. I think the Celtics are going to win by at least 10.
QQ, do we think a 3 Mav and 3 Celtic build is an okay way to go? Yeah, there's no problem with that. Kyrie won a championship. Everybody is downing on my brother. Well, I mean, with all due respect, he's a very clutch player. He's the best ball handler in the history of the game, an all-time shooter, all-time great talent. But he also had LeBron on that team. He's not winning a championship without LeBron either against that Golden State team. So come on now. He is an absolute he's a dog. But you're not winning a championship without with those teams that they got right there, without those all-time talents along right beside them. That'll do it for Roto Grinders Crunch Time today. We've hit all the QQs. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. Squirrel says Celtics by 10 plus. I agree. I think Celtics are coming away with this series. I think in 5 now. I started at 6. Now it's looking a little more like 5 to me. I think Dallas is going to come away with 1, but I don't think it's going to be tonight. We are coming up on lock. Good luck, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. Smash that like button on your way out if you haven't done so yet. And we will be back tomorrow with some more MLB content in as well. We will see you tomorrow. Peace out.